welcome to the first candidate forum for Providence. We have independent candidates here talking about the issues that's coming up for our election on 2022. I'm thinking this is the most important election that we have, period.
Yes.
Not just because we're all first-time candidates going in, but to me, this election is about Rhode Island. So on the national level, I think everything comes back to Rhode Island.
100%.
Ivan, you have topics over there.
I definitely
you tell us.
I definitely agree. I think it's important, and I actually like the fact that we're actually having this. So we have like a lot of discussion, especially as independent candidates that don't really get too much like spotlight, as opposed to like, let's say, like a Democrat candidate or Republican candidate that has the backing. So I appreciate you for obviously putting this together.
This is a collaboration of getting in on the campaign trail, and like we all live in Providence.
Mm-hmm.
We're all independent, so why don't we actually? No one's going to tell our story better than us.
Exactly.
Between who we are, what we're here for, what we're fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so why don't we just start, Ivan?
Yeah. So
what are we fighting for?
No. Well, what about who's Ivan?
Yeah.
So I'm Ivan Montanez. Grew up in Providence. Grew up in the same neighborhood that I'm trying to represent, District 13. I grew up in the projects, Hoffer projects, with my single mom and two younger siblings. Went to elementary school, middle school right in my district, went to high school, and I'm currently working at the high school that I graduated at. So yeah, I've been involved in the community. I've been part of the community, and something I always tell everybody, this is my home. You know, I feel like a lot of people come here from different states and cities, and they basically want to say, oh yeah, I want to represent you, but you're not really from the community. You know, like I was born and raised, and I feel like when you're born and raised somewhere, it's like that is your home. You know, you protect your home no matter what. I don't like everything that's going on with a cost to inflation and everything else, so that's why I'm running. But I know we're going to get into that, so I won't go too far into that. I'll let somebody else speak before I hog this mic.
Well, I'm a Rhode Island implant. My name is Niyoka Powell. I'm running for Senate District 1, Providence. And just like Ivan, I know what it feels like to grow up in an area that is, you know, under the poverty rate. I grew up in Jamaica, moved to the United States when I was 9, grew up in Connecticut, and came to Providence specifically for college, and just never left. I mean, the city itself has become my home. I've lived here for 17 years, and the way that the city has developed and grown over time is amazing at which speed that it has grown, but it has definitely left a lot of the population behind. So I'm running for District 1 because I've always lived in District 1. From the first time I lived on Yorkshire Street, then I was over on Parade in the West End for a brief moment, and then came back to the North End. It just seems to have always called me. But like Ivan said, it's time for our generation to take up, to help out where we can and do what we can for our generation, because the tides have changed, the needs have changed, and there's definitely a different view and outlook on life and what it means to be an American, that we need to fight for our freedoms. And that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm running for Senate District 1, because our freedoms need to be protected.
Yes.
And I'm Stacey Capizzano, running for House District 5. I grew up in Connecticut as well, and moved to Rhode Island in '93, 29 years ago, to go to URI. Went to the College of Nursing, and I also ended up staying in Rhode Island. I found it endearing, and it's a beautiful state. It's become my adoptive state. I've lived here ever since. And I lived in Providence since 2000, had an apartment with some roommates on the east side for a couple of years before I closed on my house the day of the station fire, so it's easy to remember how long I've had that house in the same neighborhood close to the Vesey Street Elementary School. So that's how long I've lived in the district, and it seems like the district has gone downhill a bit. I've never met any representation, and so as a nurse, when COVID hit, it was concerning for everybody. A year ago, I saw how the mandates were such a strong destructive force, in the healthcare system. It became extremely politically motivating for me. I started going to the State House more, got more involved. I realized eventually in the spring, this is Rhode Island. We can meet everybody that's running for office, and I can see if I like them or not and talk to them about specific issues. I live right up the road from the State House as well. So went there multiple times for bills in the spring, for or against or whatever. And I said, geez, I want to do this, and I can vote from the inside and get some of these tyrants out of here. There's a lot of folks up there that have been in the State House too long. We need some fresh blood. This was the Constitution, and the state government and national government was made so that we, the people, could have a voice. I want to be able to represent my community and represent the common people. And what we stand for, like on my street and in my neighborhood, as well as myself, and not some of these crazy ideas that are going on down on Smith Hill. So that's my story.
It's funny, your story and my story, very similar in some way. Ironically, the day we're taping this is coming on to my 20th year as being a Rhode Islander.
Oh,
Really?
Oh, nice.
And I found Rhode Island, like moving in it by accident.
Yep.
For the fact that I was doing events throughout New England, going into Rhode Island quite often. And I only moved down here because, ironically, the housing prices.
Yeah.
You know, I'm originally from Brockton, Massachusetts, moved down here because at that time it was different of a swing of like 150,000
Wow.
between buying a house in Rhode Island at that time. I wanted a multifamily, so the idea was between about 100, 150, compared to up in Mass, where I was from, it was like 350, 400.
Wow.
So I only moved down here, ironically, because of the housing difference.
Yeah.
So I was driving to work 55 minutes each way,
Wow.
but I saved 150, 200,000 on it.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I started thinking about running was very similar to everybody on the panel, is stuff was changing. You know, we got tired of watching stuff that you complain, but what do you do? And, you know, my daughter now is in 7th grade. So watching her, and, you know, when it was time to start choosing, what do we do? What do we do for schooling?
Yeah.
Again, we're in Providence. School systems, you know, you question the education, the safety. And with her being a type 1 diabetic, we were getting feedback that she possibly could be into just all, I think
All
was
inclusive?
inclusive, just because she's a type 1, she needs insulin, you know, and that was like, what? So that's when I started the rolling down of looking at politics and starting getting re-engaged. And then also, you know, through the pandemic, being a business owner, being a husband, everything. Rhode Island, ironically, when I moved down here, kind of gave me everything.
Yeah.
It gave me a business, it gave me a house, it gave me a wife, it gave me a child, it gave me a family. Now it's time to protect it, build on it, and make it better for everybody across the board. Going back to what we said at the beginning, this is about Rhode Island election, and everybody who lives in Rhode Island, not just one individual, one group. It's about everybody.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to see our communities succeed.
Yeah.
We want to see businesses succeed and schools be productive and help the kids grow up into high functioning adults, not just radicals.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that we would like to discuss further is the cost of living. I mean, you said you moved here because the cost of living in Rhode Island was so much less than living in Brockton. I mean, for me, looking at a home in Rhode Island a few years back, I want to say 8 years ago, I spent 9.5 years living on Windmill Street. And around that time, I was looking to purchase as well, around 8-9 years ago. And I was just like, okay, well, what can I afford? And I did find properties that were like 3 bedrooms, single family for $132. I mean,
Wow.
that price is never coming back.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if that price, you will ever see that ever again
No.
in the city of Providence, because between taxes being increased on the north end, south side, and west end of Providence, excluding the east side of Providence this past year, I don't know if we as a community can handle that. When your taxes are going up, there's an inflation happening right now. We're plummeting into a recession and a food shortage. Um, when you hear those, what kind of thoughts do you get, and how do you protect your family from famine, really, when your energy prices are going through the roof, as per the new statements made by the Public Utilities
Well,
Commission?
you just want to
And
dig at everything
no,
right now.
no, but that's cost of living.
Yeah,
That,
no,
I'm just thinking about all the bills that I have to pay with my family. I mean, I have a 5-year-old, she's epileptic, so there are other things going on that I need to take care of. But I can't see where my fiance and I we both work full time. We both work full time. She goes to school. We still have bills to pay. We both have vehicles that, and I mean, we work in opposite directions altogether. So one could say, okay, well, you need to go down to a 1-car household. That doesn't work.
Mhm.
I mean, which 1-car household is going to drive from Fall River, Massachusetts, where I work, to Quonset Point in Rhode Island, and still be able to pick up a child from school at 2:30?
Mhm.
Like, that doesn't work. So not only are we overextending ourselves, like most would think we're overextending ourselves, but at the end of the day, you still need to make sure that your family's okay. So how do we go about that? We have to make sure that our legislators, we have to make sure our representation is in line with the people. Because currently the state of Rhode Island is, what, 49th in the most expensive state to live in the nation? That makes no sense to me. When even on the north end, the median or average yearly income or annual income is $45,000. That doesn't make any sense.
When you go about inflation through the whole two years pandemic,
Yeah.
has there been any bills to help the households? Doesn't matter what income level, regarding reduces in taxes of any kind.
Not that I can recall.
I didn't see any.
Yeah, I didn't see any.
When I Googled Rhode Island taxes, I went on to the Division of Taxation. I couldn't find a list. I was just looking for a list. What are we actually being taxed on?
Correct.
I couldn't find it. Google, I believe, gave me 58 items in Rhode Island getting taxed on.
Yes.
There wasn't one bill
To decrease taxes.
since January. I'm giving them the benefit of from January to June. There wasn't one bill that came out with a reduction of taxes or anything.
Yeah. I think a lot of the politicians are jumping around with glee about getting rid of the car tax. But if you remember, since we've lived in Rhode Island for so long.
You're going down that road quick.
No, but the car tax, though, they'll say that was a big chunk of money that was saved. But in all honesty, when I first moved to the state of Rhode Island, I had an older vehicle. And once your vehicle hit the 10-year mark, you no longer had to pay taxes on your vehicle. And then they brought back the car tax. So as easily as you can bring a tax back, you can get rid of it, is my feeling on this. And again, to say that you've now gotten rid of the car tax, it should have never come back. That just doesn't make any sense.
My first thought was you got rid of it,
Exactly.
but what else are you going to tax us on? What
Exactly.
else is coming down?
Exactly.
And driving up the highway, I don't care if you're going, well, you're pretty good at going to Fall River,
Yeah.
but everywhere else,
Yeah.
we have those arches that aren't golden, they're golden for somebody.
Yep, they are golden for somebody.
They are temporarily shut off for
Yep.
for truckers,
Correct.
but I know everyone drives through are we going to get taxed again on it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big deal when they went up, and there was a lot of pushback with Gina.
I was one of those pushbackers.
Yeah, because we know they're gonna eventually turn it to to do it to everybody.
What I've realized in this state and any time in life is that nothing is for free.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that the money was spent to put those items up they're going to need to either repay something or they're going to have to take them down. So now we're going to have to pay someone to take them down. So regardless of if they're turned on or off, it's going to cost the state something.
Yeah.
And we as taxpayers are going to be the ones flipping the bill, like how we as taxpayers are getting taxed left and right.
So according to this, it says in Rhode Island, housing costs are 19.6% above the national average. The average monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Providence climbed 34% from last year. Two-bedroom unit has an average monthly rent of $2,700 of the 12% from last year.
That's sick.
Well, if that's the
That's-
entire state, we're
yeah.
also including like places like Westerly, Charlestown,
Newport.
Newport, Barrington,
East
so
side.
east side of Providence. So like that number is high, but I can't say that I'm not paying close to that.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, definitely. My rent,
on the north end, so
my rent within last year and this year went
mine
up.
doubled.
Mine went up $300.
Yeah,
Oh,
mine
wow.
doubled.
So it's like, how do you expect people to find that extra $300 when they're paying extra on food, they're paying extra on gas, they're paying extra on everything?
and
I
your
mean, now
paycheck
Heating
stays the
oil.
same.
now the energy cost is going up 47%, starting they said up to October, which is just this weekend, we just started.
Yep.
On here it says for total grocery costs, Rhode Island is 8.7% above the national average. Even the food cost here has elevated. Yeah, I don't know. One thing with me is I always said I love bacon. But when I saw
Oh my
when I saw
gosh.
bacon go up $6, I'm like, oh
No.
God, no! How am I gonna eat
Yeah,
bacon
yeah.
again?
Not
So,
Oh my
today.
gosh.
but no, I remember when it was like $3.50 or something, and then I saw it going up
remember,
all the way to
yeah.
like six something. I'm like,
I don't
what
know
are they
where
doing?
you shop, but where I shopped, it was going up to like $12.
Wow.
I saw $12 at one point, and I was
For
like, "That is
bacon?
it for bacon." I was like, "That is it."
That's it. We're allergic
That
to
is
bacon.
it.
We're allergic to bacon
I
from now on.
haven't
whenever-
had bacon in months.
Wow.
I think the last time we bought bacon was probably March.
Oh my gosh.
I had bacon yesterday. So.
Oh my gosh,
Good.
it was like turkey bacon this morning. Ugh.
Ugh.
All right, so look at it. So everybody knows that we have an issue with
Yeah.
inflation. We know that the cost is going up. Everywhere we look, cost is up.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, coffee, beer,
Yeah.
bacon, chocolate,
Gas.
ice cream. You know,
Yeah.
and gas. We're
Heating
doing it.
oil. Mm-hmm.
I don't see anyone really doing it. People have plans. Like I don't know about you, right? If you want to go down the NG route, so they had, they already passed it.
Yep.
You know, they had their last meeting was about a week and a half ago on a Friday.
Electricity. Yeah.
Yep. And that, it was formality that they had to go. There were some politicians jumping up and down
Yeah.
like a dog and pony show, screaming and yelling, got thrown out. You know, it was already done.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was already done. You can't
could
fight
tell.
the fight after the fight was already done.
Correct.
Yeah.
This should have been fought. I'm looking at it, when you look at everything that happened, why did the state allow all of these smaller companies to get bought by National Grid? And how they allow National Grid to get bought by one company? What do you have when you have one?
Monopoly.
And what happens with a monopoly?
They do what they
They
want.
do what they want and normally go price right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, they're trying to condense everything with fuel, right?
Correct.
To what?
Electric.
Electric. So if everything's on one again, what's going to happen?
Monopoly.
It's going to be
It's
even
going to be a
worse.
monopoly. And I think we can all say that we love the planet. We kind of live here, right? We
Yeah,
kind of know people.
kinda.
Yeah.
We kind of know the future.
Yeah.
With the friends. We like everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
So why would we want to destroy it?
Yeah.
We're smarter now than we were in 1940 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, and nobody wants to address it, California.
Oh.
They embraced solar in the 70s.
Yeah.
And now look at the issues that they have between, is it rollouts, blackouts?
Brownouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you
They're not
name it.
allowed to plug in their cars at night or whatever anymore. Yeah.
Wasn't it something that Newsom came out and said, or I'm not sure if it was him, but it was something out of California where they were telling you what to turn your thermostat to, like
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
AC
Yeah.
or something
Like
that.
78 degrees or
78, keep it at
something.
78, just like, that's crazy.
And that's the other thing, though, is like in terms of like energy control and energy efficiency. If you're utilizing a energy efficient item that goes up with your smartphone or whatever. I was talking to someone who said, well, now they're wanting you to hook up to their system so that they can help you with your energy, which means help you with your energy saving costs, which means they can preset remotely the temperature within your home. So if that's something that you would like to do in, you know, the world that is coming, great. But a majority of us don't really want someone invading our space like that.
You don't want to be helped?
I don't think I want to be helped
You
like
want to be
that.
helpless?
I think I would love to just, you know, have that wood stove again.
Well, okay, go down that road. If I'm not mistaken, bring up the name of the act in Rhode Island in the year that anything fossil related, including wood stoves,
Yep.
gone.
No
They
more.
were trying to
Yep.
legislate
No
against
more.
it. Yeah.
Correct.
And I don't think a lot of people, if you
Realize
read the whole
that.
bill, they didn't realize that and
Yeah.
how they did and how quick they did. They were overly
Correct.
aggressive regarding some of the bills.
And that makes you wonder because certain parts of the state, not necessarily Providence utilizing, you know, a wood stove, but certain places like Foster, Gloucester area, they are more, you know, in tune with their energy out there and how they want to preserve their energy out there, because you get snowed in sometimes up there and you do utilize your wood stove. You do utilize like a, you know, a coal stove or something, because the homes out there, some of them are equipped for that. So to tell someone that they can't utilize that when they live in an area that is far reaching for the energy sector to get to. Remember when National Grid was here, we'd have tons of parts of the Smithfield up that would have no energy in a blizzard, or they'd be left in the cold for days, or when they had no electricity and all their food was melting and it was still warm out during like nor'easters and when it was still warm for the tropical storms. So we have to think of the people in mind and not just the dollar sign attached to it, because you don't live in those areas, so you shouldn't be making the decisions for those people. That's my thought.
That's why it's important that we keep that we have people that are actually from the community actually running, that are actually that are being affected by all these legislation that's being passed and everything. We need people to wake up. So something that I go when I speak to the voters is like, hopefully that more people are inspired to like run from the community. Like when they see me out there, they're like, oh, I've never seen you before, you know, like I'm like, good. I'm like, we should be seeing new people. Like, why would we want to keep voting the same people in over and over and over again when they're the ones that are putting these legislation in place, or at least not voting against it, or maybe, you know, like not vouching to change those. And that's why I'm glad that, you know, more and more people are running and speaking up about it.
Well, going down that path, walking and talking in the district, people don't know what people that represent them really are. And I think that's an issue too. And it doesn't matter the political affiliation, that be honest with the people of what you are. And it doesn't matter if you're an independent, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. Just don't
Sugarcoat it.
Just don't sugarcoat it and going down, because in Providence, and I'll put it right out there, the candidate I'm running against is a socialist. And the media does not bring that out. And I've never known anybody that I've talked to knew that he was very few that I've met. And usually those are people that had a very short conversation because they didn't want to have a talk. Because some reason in Providence, there's a small group of socialists in that area. And I never knew that was a thing in the United States. I mean, you knew it was there, but I never really knew it was in literally my backyard. And that to me, that was a little concerning that candidates are running, and luckily in the primaries, a lot of them were defeated. But in my area, I'm going against a socialist who doesn't really tell people. He was telling them on social media. And how I see it, is a Democrat problem first. They should have stopped it in their, you know, their party and not allowed that, you know, and I don't know how they did it. So, you know, ask your candidates straight questions. And I think all of us are honest. Ask a question. We may not like the question that you're, you know.
Correct.
Well, what is the worst question someone can ask you? I mean, I like having conversations with people. Some days they start off a little bit rough,
Yeah.
but the more you talk to them, majority of the time, I think you come together because it's
Yeah. Common ground.
Yeah.
because you spend time. And I think that's one of the greatest things about campaigning so far is that you're having conversations with people you normally would not because your daily life is different.
Yeah, true.
Something that I've seen also from campaigning is like kind of like adding to the point where you were saying is that a lot of people don't even know what these people are running on or what they're
Yes.
and something that I think it was 2 days ago when I was out putting signs, a guy came up to me and was like, hey, like remember when you were talking? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you know, everything you were saying about my opponent was correct. He's like, I looked it up, and a lot of people don't realize that you can actually look up this information. You can actually look up the way they're voting.
How do you have the link on that?
So it's billtrack50.com, but I think if you just type in your legislator's name, and it'll actually pull up their voting record, how they've been voting, whether they've been voting yes, no, or kind of like my opponent where you just don't show up or you just don't vote on anything. You can also see that as well. So so something I've been going around is telling people, and actually like I'm glad that I'm going around and letting people know that, and I'm pretty sure we are too. We're opening people's eyes to actually find out, like, you can actually find this information. So I'm actually glad that people are actually realizing and waking up. So something that you can go around and when you're talking to your constituents or your voters is like, hey, like, look, he's a socialist. Like, look at the way he's voting. Look at the way he's, like, what's he promoting? Like, what is he for?
You want to go down safety?
Well, I think
Providence safety, because that just reminds me of a sign that we've all been seeing.
Well, I mean, just to kind of hop on what Ivan was saying though was the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, everybody has a right to fact check us. Everybody has a right to, you know, call us out and hold us accountable. And I think that's one thing that I will definitely encourage my constituency to do, is to hold me accountable. If there's something that I voted on that you didn't agree with, send me an email, send me a voice note, send me a carrier pigeon if you have to. Like, I just want to know how you look at that bill or that legislation that just went through or didn't go through, and why you thought how I voted was incorrect. Because I'm not there for my own well-being. I'm there because I see an issue and I want to help solve that issue. It's not about me, which is why I'm running as an independent, because I have my own personal views. I'm more conservative than most. I mean, I've been called every name under the sun in regards to my political views, and I think that does not define who I am when it comes to voting on something that affects the entire community. So at the end of the day, transparency is key. If you want that transparency, call us out on it, because at the end of the day, we only get into office because of you.
Yes, well said.
And hold us accountable. That's something I've been telling everybody. Like, when I show them, I'm like, let's look at the way he's been voting the past 2 terms that he's been on there, and like, hold me accountable too. Like, if I'm voting somewhere you don't like, find it. So obviously when I'm telling them how to find it for him, I'm also telling them how to find it for myself.
Correct.
Because if I'm not voting in a way that you don't agree with, like, let me know, like, so we can have that conversation. And I feel like what's going on now in politics is that people forget to have conversation with people, and people are so invested on, this is the way I feel, and this is my view. I don't care about your view. Correct. You know, I went to a recent event that was going on at the Cranston Library, and I wasn't allowed inside because I didn't RSVP ahead of time. So I went outside to the protesters that were outside, and there were people that were trying to engage them and say, hey, let's have a conversation. Some of the things that I was hearing that I didn't like was people were like, oh, I already know what you're all about, I don't need to have a conversation with you. And it's like, that's what's missing out of here. You know, and just by going around talking to people, and I'm like, this is what the legislature should be doing, going around to your constituents and finding out what they want. I don't know if I'm going off topic, but a lot of the issues that I'm seeing is that a lot of these representatives, once they get into office, they forget to go around and like find out what people are actually going through. So like she was saying, like, hold us accountable. Like, you know, like, if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, like, tell me, be like, hey, Ivan, you're not doing your job. Like, what's going on with this?
And to mimic what you're saying in terms of holding people accountable, that goes for both us and our constituents. If you're going to be disrespectful to your representative or your senator, that doesn't solve the problem. That only infuriates people. That only makes you look like something else that you probably don't want to be characterized as. And remember that we're all human and our safety is important, just as your safety is important. And working as a group with your constituency is the best way to get safety to the number one platform to get our neighborhoods back to where they need to be. In terms of our safe community safety, safe spaces, or even being able to acknowledge the importance of a police force or policing force within our communities. You cannot have one without the other. So this whole talk of decreasing the responsibility of the law enforcement within an area doesn't make any sense. I mean, anyone who has immigrated from another country knows this. You know what it's like to feel unsafe. You know what it's like to not know if where you're going is going to be a safe space for you or your family. And if there's anything that we're all here for tonight is to make sure that we are going to be safe when we leave our homes. We can leave our cars parked and know that nobody's going to take it. You can't do that without the help of law enforcement. I'm sorry, you can't.
True.
Speaking of public safety, obviously that's also a big issue for myself and us, as well as school safety. A lot of our schools, I know when we had Ashley had a little, Ashley Kalis had a forum that we were all at. I asked basically on school safety, like, how do you guys feel about, especially what's going on recently in the news? I think it was like 2 weeks ago at a middle school, there was an unauthorized person coming into the building. So that's something that I because if we're sending our kids to school, we want to make sure our kids are safe. You know, not only in the community, our kids need to be safe in schools, especially we see things that happen in other states. We don't want to wait till something like that happens to then be like, oh, now we got to act on something. Like, no, like, we need to be proactive, and put things in place before things happen. Like we were saying, like, we need to have a partnership and a good working relationship with our law enforcement. They're the ones going to be protecting our kids. If we're going to protect, this is the way I see it. If we are going to protect employees or adults at the State House who can fight for themselves more than not, but we're not going to keep our kids safe. You know, we should be protecting our kids just as much, if not more, than we do our own like state legislators.
Correct.
Absolutely.
You know, like, we're adults. I'll fight somebody. You know, like a 6th grader is not going to be able to fight a man or somebody grown. So yeah, how do you guys feel about public
I feel
safety?
like Jared is more safe than our school.
No, but I think it goes
The
back to when
gallery
we're
of
talking about
jewelry.
walking our district,
Yeah.
community. And probably that's the biggest thing that's probably lacking is the communication between neighbors and other people in the community. Once you start talking, things break down in the positive.
Correct.
You know, and I don't think you've ever met anyone that said kids should not be safe. They should not be in a learning environment. They should not. That shouldn't even be a thought.
Correct.
You know, at any age. You know, and you're right. Why are we protecting the politicians who can correct the problem compared to the kids who are just there not to have a problem?
Correct. Your thoughts, Stacey?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, you know, this whole talk about making a safe space. That's a big talk in schools these days. But so often it seems like it's doing the opposite. It's creating a not safe space for the majority. And I understand, you know, some people from a young age are struggling with their identity, maybe their sexual orientation, and just not feeling like they belong in whatever way. And they do need help and support and direction and to not feel bullied. I agree with that, but it should not be to the detriment of everybody else in the classroom. And it doesn't make sense to bring everybody else down to elevate a few. That just doesn't work. So what you were saying was starting to remind me of that. seeing a lot of that in the schools. Like, I think we should reward, kids that do good in school and help the ones that need a little more help.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ivan sees a lot of that. He's working in the school system.
Yes, that's why that's one of my big things, because I work in the school and I'm around all these kids. Is like, how am I supposed to protect somebody from coming into the building?
Yeah.
Like, as educators, our responsibility is to have the students come to school and make sure that they go back to the home to their parents. The parents entrust us with their children for 6 hours in a day, to teach them basic things that we have in classrooms. I don't want to have to be worrying like, oh, like somebody gonna come into the building, like do I have to protect these kids? Do I have to put my life on the line to protect these kids? Which I would, but it's not something that we should leave that responsibility to the educators. The educators should just be there just to educate.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of distractions and too much going around, too much noise. I call it noise. Yeah, so I don't want to.
I mean, I've been told time and time again, while we do our walks or on social media from people that, the offices we're running for have nothing to do with education, and that we should stay in our lane. Unfortunately, we have children, so this is our lane. Whether or not we can influence a majority of the legislation that goes towards education, we're still going to be a voice piece for the community, and these are the concerns of the community that are being discussed. What we can do when we get into office is seek out the climate of what is available to us. We will have a plethora of people around us, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, whomever, who will put forth bills, and we will read them and we will vote accordingly. So to tell someone running that, that's school board or that's this or that's that, I'm sorry, we all are going to vote on something that's going to affect your child in school. Whether it's about their safety, whether it's about their form of education, whether it's legal for them to get a certain form of education, those are all bills that are passed in the Senate and in the House. Like, you have to realize that, when it comes to sexual pleasure, that's not school board.
That's what I was thinking
That
too.
would be us voting on that. So to tell us that we have no say in how kids are taught in school is a gross disadvantage to the community, to tell the community that they have no choice in what their kids are being taught. We are taxpayers and we are parents. We want our kids to be productive in this environment. We want them to be productive citizens of this state. And we want to make sure that when they leave your care as a teacher, and I can only tell you that from my personal experience, I've had maybe one teacher that I remember that was somewhat rotten to me as a kid. And that was it. Everybody else has, provided me with the steps that were necessary to get to where I need to be. And I'm just praying that teachers today, and I'm not saying that it's every teacher that does this, it's always a few that burns the bridges for everybody else. Teachers go into teaching because they love what they do. They love their students, they want them to be productive in this environment, and they want to make sure that these kids have a very good school experience. They're not looking to burn bridges, they're not looking to terrorize parents, they're not looking to say, you know what, I have your kid for 6 hours and you can't do nothing about it. That is not how the teachers are. So we need to stop villainizing these teachers. And when we see things like, for example, what happened at Classical High School, it was more of a slap in the face than anything. I know the projections and I know the projects that the city of Providence has put forth for the school system, and it's more of a civic-based project that they're working on, and I will call it a project because that's what it is, which starts from a middle school age through high school that ends with a capstone project. So once those things come into play, you kind of put to the side a lot of those basic needs that these kids will need. So you're telling me, from my understanding, is that the child will learn the basics that they need for growth up until about 6th grade. So that's your writing, your reading, your math. And then after that, it's going to be more of a civic-based learning. At that point, I don't think you can read statistics. At that point, I don't know if you know how to do research, like actual appropriate research. I don't know if you understand what it means when your decisions as a minor, how it affects your livelihood later on in life, the decisions that you make when you're out there picketing during school hours on taxpayer dollars, and it's okay because there's no repercussions, there's no consequences anymore. So we as parents and we as people running for office, we're doing this because we're fed up and we're being provoked by the current system that's there, because it's completely thrown our children into a world where they will now be a slave to the environment. And they won't be productive for it.
Yeah, we want them to be high functioning adults and come out with actual skills.
Exactly.
So when it goes down to education, a lot of times it comes up now, people are saying, okay, if you live in a zip code, if you live in an area, you have to go to a certain school. Good, bad, or indifferent?
I think parents should have a choice where to send their kid, whether it's public, private. I get that you have to pay extra for that, or some of the charter schools are really good, but there should be choice of a school. And there's talk about this voucher program. I don't know why like that's such an issue, because I mean, we're paying taxes for kids to go to school, whether we have kids in the school or not. We're paying for it. So yes, we should have a choice where the kids go to school. It almost seems like, you know, I'm not sure. It's just the government school system seems like, you know, they're trying to put kids through to make them learn certain things that they wouldn't get other places. So giving the parents the power to choose a school would be a great thing.
I think the same along those lines, but I would definitely have to make amendments to that generalized idea of school choice. It's more intricate than we think it is. That's just a broad topic.
Yep.
But for the most part, I think that it's more of being able to let your personal tax dollars follow your child.
Yes.
Because the state or the federal government, whomever taxes you on these things, because all we know is we're taxed, and taxed heavily, whatever amount it is to follow that child through a school year, that amount should be a tax deduction for parents, regardless of which school you're sending your child, because at the end of the day, it was your tax dollars that provided that care for that child. So in terms of like, in terms of allowing the student to go somewhere else, those resources should be allocated to the school that the student's going to. It shouldn't be at an extra cost to the parent, because you've already, you know, signed your life away to do that.
Or even the homeschool.
Yeah,
I mean, homeschooling is big these days.
Yeah, homeschooling definitely. I think the funds should go back to the parents in a 501 account, savings account, specifically for education. So that way, when they need to purchase items to help with teaching their children at home, they should be able to utilize those funds for it and not money out of their pockets.
Exactly.
So why do you, like my child goes to a charter school. That was one of the things we came up with due to curriculum, you know, safety, and just results. And she's been in the system, the Achievement First system since, pre-K? Excels, diverse class, right? You name the nationality is in there. But seeing these kids from all different backgrounds, from all, I think they have like 7 communities they can come from. They treat them all the same. They're learning the same. And yes, you get some brighter kids, you have some non-brighter kids, but they pull them all up. And I think that's the key part, is I think we forget the education's there for the kids.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if they're public, it doesn't matter if they're charter or going to private. I mean, the thing that, one of the reasons I thought about running, going back to my kid, is I remember, I think it was Reagan was on, and he was giving a speech about education. So I was probably, I don't know, maybe like 9 or 10 years old. I'm looking at it now, like almost 40 years later, we are still complaining about education.
Same thing.
Why?
Yeah.
We have the money, we have smart people, we have the resources.
We have a surplus.
Yes. So why can't we figure it out?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of the problems that either we discussed it today or on the other episodes that we're planning on doing, it all comes down to the money.
Correct.
And I think in every profession, you have good and bad, but it comes down to the money. And we have to fix it for all the generations. And I think we finally, the next 2 years, going back to, is all about Rhode Island. Fix Rhode Island by Rhode Islanders.
Correct.
The cities, the towns, education, the businesses, everything is Rhode Island, fixing Rhode Island. We won't worry about Connecticut. I'm sorry, you two. We won't worry about my mom and Mass. We're going to worry about Rhode Island and fix it because we can.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think we have to get out of our way. I think one problem is we have to address it as a problem.
I think we also need to realize that regardless of party, we
Yes.
got into office because
Yes.
Rhode Islanders voted you in because
Right.
you were going to fix a problem.
And-
And you were going to help make sure that they were safe. Their kids were able to go to schools.
Yeah.
Their families are taken care of. So at the end of the day, we are all in office for the same reason. It's just a matter of taking your personality out of it and doing your job.
Let's tackle the tough questions.
Yeah.
The issues,
Yeah.
right? The education,
Mm-hmm.
the business and the economy,
Yeah.
because we really haven't touched on them, but it comes down to wages, right?
Correct.
You know, I put out there when I started running, when it comes down to the way to get Rhode Island, some of my opponent and other opponents, they want a minimum wage like $19 and $28 an hour.
That doesn't make any sense.
The problem with that is a lot of small businesses, if they're, it can be mom and pop or, 25, 50, or 100, they can't afford that. And if we can help these companies grow by getting different employees by resources or education, if the business is making money, they will pay the employee. And it's not about that business making all the money.
Correct.
Is we bring everybody up. And I think that's what they forget. Nobody doesn't want to pay that $28, but if they're making 28, how much is the business making? Because it filters down. And unfortunately, being a business owner, majority of times we were sacrificed to keep the doors open for the people who work with us and the organization we work with. So a lot of times you may be getting that $19 or $20 an hour. We're getting like 7 or -7.
Yeah.
I think people forget about that.
Yeah.
What
You know?
what people don't realize is that if you bring the wages up, like you were saying for small businesses, that means the cost of the items in that store have to go up.
Through the roof.
Because that money has to come from somewhere. It's not
Yeah.
going to come from the business owner's own personal pocket. Nobody's going to want to lose funds like that. So in order for them to wage out the wage increase, they would have to increase like milk, cereal,
Yeah.
the items in the store that we would need. So it doesn't really fix the problem.
Yeah.
It just makes the problem
Worse.
worse.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing up the wages. That means the items in the store are going to cost more, and business is not going to be able to stay open like that or paying that much.
Well, it's the
For-
inflationary prices. Everything is going up because we can't keep the lights on, pretty much. Because you're choosing to keep the lights on over feeding your family, or you feed your family and the lights go out. Like, when you're running a business, like he's saying, like, there's just no way. He's the one that's not better off. He's providing
Exactly.
a service to the community, yes, but unless he increases prices, unless he adheres to that increase in wage for someone who wants to work with him, then there's no way that he can provide this. I think we need to focus on the fact that we have so many young, active kids. What's the age of employment in Rhode Island? Is it 15?
Average.
Being
minimum.
able to.
Mm-hmm. Because I know in
I'm in the
Connecticut it's
process of looking it
16.
up.
Yeah.
Because
No,
my
no,
little one
no,
wants.
no,
I
that's
think
okay.
it's 14 or 15.
Yeah.
14,
it's
15, I
yeah.
think they give you a minimum hours you can only
Yeah.
work. So 14, 15-year-olds can only work till 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
So
which makes sense.
So you have
which makes
restrictions
sense,
on
of
what
course.
hours you can
Yes,
work.
of course. That makes a lot of sense. It's a safety issue. Believe me, I understand that. But what I'm saying is you have all these young kids running amok through the city. Get them a job. Teach them responsibility. Teach them how to manage their money. You don't have to
Oh,
increase.
you want to go down that educational route?
And I was gonna say,
unfortunately-
these kids, these teenagers don't need $19, $20
They
an hour. They're
don't.
living at home with their parents.
Correct. And
so-
this is meant to be a stepping stone in responsibility. I think everybody forgets that. I mean, I know there are people who have dire circumstances who end up in these positions where they're working at a place that should be a stepping stone and need to have that extra cost of living boost in pay. But for the most part, a job that is a starter job shouldn't have to be $20 an hour to get someone through the door.
Well,
I mean, I remember when I was young and I started working at like 14 as a babysitter, certified babysitter through the state of Connecticut. You had to go through your CPR, first aid class, all of that to be a certified babysitter. Nowadays, you just call up someone and say, hey, is your kid ready? Like, can they come out? And I made $10 an hour. To this day, if you are babysitting a child, why do you need more than $10 an hour for one kid?
well,
One well-behaved child.
No.
I'm not saying that, oh, you don't need to buy new Nikes. I'm not saying that you don't need to buy, whatever. But as a teenager, in order to understand the value of a dollar, especially now, you don't need $20 an hour. You need to work for your money, grow a backbone, and figure your shit out. Like, honest. I'm sorry. You need to have these kids working. If they're not working, then you're part of the problem. Let's fix this.
circling back on starter jobs, what about the adults who had to take those jobs for whatever reason? If
And
it
that's
was,
what I was saying.
if it was educational issues, childcare issues, or they're working 2 or 3 jobs because they're hustling.
Correct. Yeah.
I've never, they always help kids coming out of high school with Rhode Island has a good program, that 2-year state school. What happened if we did a program to circle back to those adults who couldn't?
We do have those programs.
Then why are they
Not many people talk about
right,
them.
but why don't we talk about it? Because how can we not raise, if we raise people education, not just through, universities, colleges, trades, if they're not, and everyone here is like Department of Labor, and they're like,
exactly, and that's exactly what I was going to talk about.
I think we have to rebrand it, but not just spend the money on rebranding.
No,
we actually have to reach out and say, hey, if you want to become, you name the trades, right? Because obviously the trades are in demand, and they're making great money. I think we have to focus on that because now we're bringing people up. The problem with minimum wage, what's the name of it? Minimum wage. Nobody wants to be minimum. When's the last time, Ivan, you went on a date and you're like, I want to go out with you because you're the minimum kind of girl I want to go out with? That doesn't sound good.
No.
Or if you go to work, you're like, hey, by the way, I'm going to give, my clients minimum help today. It just doesn't sound right.
Of course, of course. So these are the things that possibly rebranding would help to be more popular amongst the young ones. But when we talk about getting the older people out of these starter jobs, the Department of Labor and Training has programs that would allow that. They have the SAMI program that works in congruence with Electric Boat in Quonset to get people into programs where they learn how to weld, where they learn how, like plumbing. Where
can we put a link on?
There's all sorts of programs that are available. And if you go on the DLT website, they also show you job positions that are available throughout the state. And that's including state level positions, including like if you wanted to work in the state house as whatever positions are available. Obviously you have to qualify for them, but they also do training programs for like bookkeeping. They have scholarships that will follow you through Community College of Rhode Island to get those trainings in. But they also have mentorship programs through different businesses where if someone offers to mentor you, like let's say a plumber or someone in a corporation wants to take you on as a and you do that kind of a mentorship program to build yourself up, maybe an electrician or whomever, they will actually pay that person to train you. They will pay that company to train you. You'd have to look into it, obviously, and read up on the qualifications of what it takes for these programs, but they're out there through the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training. So when someone says, well, I'm making this, I'm making that, that's your go-to. That office is so poorly utilized by the community because nobody wants to go and ask for the help when they know the help is there. They would rather you figure it out for them. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running as an independent, because again, my views are my views. I see how the community is running. I see what is available to the community, and I will utilize those programs. There will be stipulations. There will be reasons as to why you get from point A to point B. And if you can't get from point A to point B with the resources I'm providing you, then clearly you don't even want to move from point A. And we got to figure out that problem too, because again, education is very important. And if you don't want to be educated, that is your choice. But we will keep moving as a state.
I think something that we're missing out, kind of like we were saying with the programs, is when I was in high school, we had academics in our schools, like things that taught you like trades. Like
I did too.
in my school, we had Computer Information Systems Academy, we had Health and Science Academy, we had Teacher Academy.
We had wood shop.
They've gone away with all that stuff, and they just want to focus on like just.
Why was
We
it?
even had home ec.
We had home ec,
I was
everything.
sewing
like
and baking.
we've stopped teaching basic
Life skills.
life skills to kids, you know, to this young.
Was
And I
that
feel
a-
like we need to go back to that, because not everybody is meant to just sit in a classroom and just read a book
Or in an office.
or in an office all day long. Like some people, as bad as it may seem, some people are meant to be workers. Some people need to be taught these trades to work with their hands. Not everybody's meant to go, just like not everybody's meant to go to college.
Yeah.
Some people just meant to go two-year trade school, get a certificate,
Yeah, and that's
and
it.
be an excellent
Yeah.
plumber and be an excellent welder and
Electrician.
and
Yeah.
sometimes even make more money than college educated
Yeah.
They
people
make
as
more
well.
than me.
You know, and that's why I feel like we need to go. We need to focus our educational system where all right, they've gone to school from kindergarten all the way to high school. All right, now high school, let's teach them what they need to know before they graduate, and let's get them on into a trade program. You know, like by their choice. Like by the time you're in high school, you kind of have an idea of what you want to kind of study. I feel like we need to go back into that.
Yeah.
Teaching these kids trades and like you were mentioning is. I believe you were mentioning it, educating our parents. A lot of the things that we do is that we teach kids for 6 hours in a day, but the other 6 hours they go home and they go home to whatever life situations they have over there. And I feel like in order for us to help our kids, we also need to help the parents as well.
Agreed.
Going back there, the teachers have the kids for 6 hours. The family unit, which is changed over the
dramatically.
decades, doesn't matter if it's
Grandma,
grandma,
grandpa
cousin,
watching, aunts,
two moms, two dads, a mom and a dad,
Yeah.
whatever that unit is to help that child.
sometimes siblings.
The school and that family unit have to be together for the betterment of the child.
The division can't happen.
No, it can't. And I read an article a short time ago, and it said, well, there are kids when they're at school. They're never your kids.
Yeah.
You are there to help, teach, and mold to make the kids brighter, smarter, and future leaders, no matter what they do.
Yeah.
They can make them into a future leader and an individual, not a follower.
Yeah.
You know, give them the resources to make that. Some people will be followers, which is fine, but they need the resources to go and to figure it out for themselves.
Correct. They need to be able to think on their own. Critical thinking is very important for growing kids. They need to be able to ask questions. They need to be able to say, you know, but why? They need to be able to say, I've looked it up and this is what it says. They need those skills to do their own research, not just be on Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or all those other apps that are out there to say, well, I saw this on this and this is why I feel this. It's like, that is not a resource, honey. That is
So we should
someone
bring
else's.
card catalogs back.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
That was
honestly,
painful.
it
Yes,
was
it
painful.
Being taught how
Oh my
to
gosh.
think
And
and
in
not
Carta.
just what to think.
Oh God.
Oh
Well, you
my
know what? I
gosh.
feel like, and that's a problem with what's going on right now. Even when you're having like a political debate or or anything, the information that some people come up with you is like, this is what this news anchor said. It's like, well, you're giving me facts that they're telling you. You're not looking up. You're not searching for facts your own.
Yeah.
You're basically just saying, well, this is a clip what somebody on
They just,
CNN.
they just repeat each other.
My throat always itches when I say CNN.
Yeah.
But they use that as facts.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a journalist would say, that's not facts. That's
No.
that's somebody's opinion. You're
That's
saying yourself.
hearsay.
We have to teach these kids how to search up
Mhm.
information on their own, how to do critical thinking. Like, okay, if I want to find something, let me actually research it instead of
Yeah.
going on YouTube and be like, okay, what does somebody say about this? Well, that must be it, you know, and like.
And we shouldn't be afraid of not knowing the answer. If we don't
Yeah.
know the answer, give us time to research the answer so that you actually get an answer.
Yeah.
Because this is where we fall into the murky muck of politics.
Yep.
It's like everybody wants you to have the answer right now. If there was a specific answer that everybody knew right then and there, this wouldn't be a problem. So if you're following the trail of the problem, it's going to take some time. Unless you're fluent in everything, you don't know the answer. I'm sorry, you don't. So that's why it works to have a team of people who are like-minded, who don't have to agree on everything, but just have that social discord where you're challenging my point of view. So I have to go research it to make sure that either you are in fact right, or why am I thinking of it this way? That's what critical thinking is. And if you can't think for yourself, where someone is like, okay, well, I'm right about this, this is how it's going to happen, and you don't know or have the common sense enough to go and say, okay, I gotta figure this out. What happened? It's not because the person didn't like you. It's not because, of anything other than the fact that you didn't research it yourself to have a better argument. And you can't expect everybody to have an answer to everything. An argument will happen. You'll win some, you'll lose some, but you have to know why you were wrong and why the other person was right, or vice versa.
And be able to talk about it instead
Without
of just
anger.
label and be angry and divisive about it.
I love having conversations with people that think differently than I do.
Makes
Yeah.
you
I would
think.
hate to be in a room with people that are like, yep.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
knowing the hell all the time is like,
As I'm nodding my head, yep.
and agreeing with everything you have to say is kind of like, go away. It's like I like having intellectual conversations.
Correct.
Like the reason why Chris came up with this, because we were hanging out before at a different
Different venue,
and we were actually having conversations like this where actually Chris and another person were like, wow, I didn't see it that way. Do you remember? And that's the conversations that I like to have. Two people, different points of views, expressing themselves, and then at the end of it, understanding and be like, okay, well, I didn't see it that way, and I didn't see it this way. Something I always tell the voters out there is like I want to make decisions that you don't agree with, and you're not going to agree with every decision that I'm going to make because you don't have the same needs as somebody else in our community has, but it's my responsibility to come to you and tell you why. Sorry.
It's okay.
Why I voted that way, and and that's what we're missing, especially now
That's
in
social
society, is like
discord.
nobody wants to listen to one another. Everybody only wants to stick with their party or their group. And that's why I'm glad we're all running as independent, because we all think the same way too. Is like we don't want to stick to a party and think just one way. We want to be able to just talk to everybody. Politics nowadays is like something I always tell everybody. It's like two divorced parents.
Yeah.
The mom and the dad, they're trying to point the ugly at each other, be like, this person's ugly because of that, this person's ugly because of that, and they're forgetting about their children that they're supposed to be looking out for. We are the children that they're supposed to be looking out for, but they're too busy polarizing everything and making everything so divisive. And that everybody here on this table, we're not interested in none of that, which is why we're running independent, because we want to, all right, let's get to work.
Yep.
Forget about this party stuff, and let's just actually put legislation forward that are actually going to impact our community and our constituents in a positive way. And let's move the party, move the state forward.
Absolutely.
There's too much
Well
work
said.
to be done to not be united on this front. There's too much work to be done. After the pandemic, it really became blatant how disadvantaged the school system was to the children, how disadvantaged people were when it came to the financial scale and the poverty line in this state. Like I said earlier, north end of Providence, the average income is $4,500. To actually live on the north end after COVID, $62. So what happened to the 45? If you're no longer working, or if you lost your job, or if you are still in that job that's only paying you 45 a year, you're now 20 something $1,000 behind where you're supposed to be in order to deal with inflation. So how do we even solve that problem?
I think in episode 2's coming down.
I know, right?
Sounds like it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think that there's just so much going on that we as independent candidates can help turn the city around and the state by providing our ideas and getting in there and changing up legislation to benefit the community rather than just individuals.
And I think with this, I think this is the year, and I feel like
This
there's
is the year.
so many people running, and
Rhode Island first.
Exactly.
Rhode Island first, and that's one thing
Exactly.
too, is that we are the smallest state
With the biggest
we-
problems.
with the biggest problem. We should be the example
Yes.
Yes.
for
100%.
every single
Yes.
state. We have the smallest population, I believe, in the smallest state. Why? And our school system is one of the lowest
And overfunded.
and overfunded. Like, how is
Yeah.
that possible? You throwing money at something, and we're still at the low at the bottom.
Yeah.
Rhode Island should be an example for every other state. Instead of us looking at what every other state is doing, just kind of like you were
Amen.
mentioning, we should be focused on ourselves.
Yeah.
Forget about what Connecticut is doing. Forget about what Massachusetts is doing.
Exactly.
What is Rhode Island doing for Rhode Island? Like,
Correct.
what are we doing? We should be the example for everybody else.
Amen. Well
Mhm.
said.
Yeah, what he said.
I think
He said it first. I was just
I think
reiterating
that's
it.
a wrap up.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
it.
just
That's
that
a
was
wrap.
a good way of bringing it around.
Alright.
See that you started off with that, and I brought it back.
Well, that being said, you can follow us all on social media. Ivan's going to put it at the bottom of the links. Episode 1, Independent Candidates of Providence.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the full tag?
Oh gosh, what full tag?
Was it Real Candidates?
No, Candid Conversations
Yes.
with Candidates.
There it goes.
Yes.
Yay.
So yeah, no, this was fun. We'll definitely have it again.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot more to talk about. Obviously, it's too much to pack up
Yeah.
within an hour.
Yep.
But yeah, if you're in Providence, District 13, Providence Johnston, remember me, Ivan Montanez, running for your state representative.
And I'm Niyoka Powell, running for Senate District 1 in Providence, Elmhurst, Smith Hill, and Douglas Ave, a little bit of Charles Street. I'm everywhere.
Everywhere.
Stacey Capizzano for House District 5. Also the North End. Most of my district is inside Niyoka's.
Chris Island, District 7. I just fill in right after you. I go by streets. I'm like Manton up to Smith, down to
Yeah.
River,
Yep.
down to Kennedy School.
Yeah.
That's
it's-
where you're driving.
Yeah.
But when you see us walking,
Say hi.
say
tell
hi,
us how
pull
you
over,
feel.
have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Come talk to us.
Social media, Ivan. How can they follow you?
Facebook, Ivan District 13. My Twitter's the same way. I just started using Twitter, so I'm still getting used to the hashtags and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think I'm doing pretty good with it now. So yeah, Facebook, Twitter, Ivan District 13. That's the easy way you can find me.
And for me, I'm on Twitter at Niyoka RI, Facebook Niyoka Powell, and that's pretty much what I use.
I think that's
that's
all I
pretty
use
much
too,
what I
Facebook
use.
and Twitter.
Yeah, I made my political page Twitter, so it's Stacey, Stacey, for the number 4 RI at Twitter.
Myself, just Ireland4RI.com. All social media is all the same. Twitter, Instagram.
Look at that! You guys have Instagram too and everything.
Well, I
gotta
have an
get- I got-
Instagram, but it's NiPie.
I have an Instagram too, but it's kind of a little dry. I haven't posted anything on it because
No, I post
Yeah.
stuff. It's
I don't.
just
You know what? I'm not a really picture person. I don't really take a lot of pictures. That's
Yeah.
why. So,
Yeah.
but we're gonna keep going if we don't stop this video.
I
Yeah.
know. And
Big-
happy belated October 1st. And if you know,
Yes.
you know.
Yes,
I know. You know.
Do you know?
Yeah, happy anniversary.
All right.
All right, guys. Bye. It was nice talking to you guys. We'll see you later. Bye.